Welcome to the Magical New Beginnings podcast, where I invite you to join me on a journey of inspiration and wisdom as we navigate the transformative phases of new beginnings together. Let's explore the enchantment of pregnancy, birth, and beyond, offering valuable insights and empowerment to navigate your path to parenthood. As your host, I am Sharon King, an internationally recognized expert in energy psychology and author of Heal Your Birth, Heal Your Life. Through our discussions, I'll share my transformative techniques focusing on pre- and perinatal birth trauma, nurturing overall well-being for both mothers and babies from conception to birth. Join me as we delve into topics like natural childbirth advocacy, infertility, IVF, adoption, becoming a new parent, and much, much more. So today it is my great honor to be joined by Cheryl Pankhurst. Welcome, Cheryl, to the Magical New Beginnings podcast. And
Thank you, Sharon.
Auspicious day, it's Eclipse Day.
Yeah. I am so excited to be here and looking at your beautiful face again. This is great. And Eclipse Day. Yeah.
And Eclipse Day. I know. And you were privileged enough to be in the path of the eclipse and just had that magical experience.
I was. And it's funny, I came home and right away went for a walk and just found some grass and did some grounding because I thought, wow, the energy in this earth has got to be crazy right now. I want to just get rid of what I don't need and give it back. It was a very cool experience though. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. All the hairs on my arm are just standing up right now when you mention it.
Right?
Just like, yes, we can feel it. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Cheryl, let me just introduce you to people so they know a little bit more about you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Cheryl Pankhurst is a true beacon of inspiration and change in the world of teen advocacy. With an illustrious career spanning over 25 years as a special educational specialist, Cheryl has dedicated her life to understanding and supporting teenagers facing unique challenges. Through her transformative journey, Cheryl's discovered her true calling to uplift and empower not only teens with diagnoses, but every young person navigating the complexities of adolescence. Oh, how I remember mine. Her groundbreaking podcast, Teen Mind Redefined, which I will put a link below for you, serves as a sanctuary for parents seeking guidance and wisdom on the roller coaster ride of raising teenagers. Beyond her professional endeavors, Cheryl is also a devoted mum of two beautiful humans, her daughter and a life partner. As a lifelong yogi addicted to doing inner work, yeah, me too, speaking her truth, me too, and shining her light, me too, Cheryl strives to embody the values that she preaches, inspiring others to live their true, authentic selves.
Thank you. Oh, that's a pretty cool bio.
It is. I know, very cool bio. Cheryl, first of all, I'm going to say, also, we did an awesome podcast together, so I will also put that link below as well. And that's how we met. We met through you interviewing me on your podcast. So
that was powerful. It was so good. Yeah.
Such good fun. And I think, because we hadn't met, it's just like we're just so aligned in our thinking.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
this one is going to be amazing too. But this time you get to do more of the talking.
There we go.
There we go. Alrighty. So my first question for you, Cheryl, is why teenagers? What has been your story or your experience that you've decided that this is the area focusing in on teenagers, and especially teenagers that are slightly different to to the norm.
Yeah, different superpower.
Different superpower, absolutely.
Yeah, I started off with working with teenagers in a very small class setting, and just started to realize very quickly that the relationship formed with kids who, you know, don't feel judged. They feel like they can say what they want. They feel like they're in a safe zone, and that at the time the kids were neurodivergent. Didn't matter. They knew I thought they had a special power, and always worked towards those strengths, and just minimized, you know, we all have some needs, so just minimize those needs. And I did a very small stint in elementary school with the little kids, and every teacher that works up to grade 6 gets my hat and a trophy, because there's just no way. I love kids. I loved my kids. I loved raising my kids, but I just could not. I could not manage the younger ones. I just found that grade 9 to grade 12, I just had a rapport with them, and I loved their humor. I loved being able to have really true, honest conversations. And when you're dealing with teenagers, you're really knocking your ego out of the park, because teenagers will call you out every time. And it's a good call out. It's a really good call out. It puts you in place and makes you go, oh, that's a different perspective. Okay, let's work with that. And you know, kids do well when they can. And I think our view of teenagers being lazy or misbehaving or pushing our buttons, I think none of that is true. None of it. I feel like if a teenager is not meeting your expectation or is doing something that you're not happy with, it's usually because there is something going on. It's just a piece of communication. And so it's been my jam to try and find out what that breakdown in communication is, and help the parents see a different viewpoint, put on a different lens. And I love them. I just love I like spending time more with teenagers than adults half the time, to be honest.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Oh. So what have you discovered within the family dynamics that so when you're working with a family, how do you begin that process of helping the parent to see their children through new eyes?
Yeah, when I sit down with parents, first of all, I never meet with a parent without the kid. When it comes to high school, I'm a very big proponent of nothing happens without your kid present. There's, you know, there's that independence. You want to coach your kid. You don't want to control what's happening. You want to coach. You've got this. I've got faith in you to make these decisions. And if you fall, that's okay. I'm here. I've got your back and I can help you, as opposed to, this is where we're going to go. This is the class we're going to take. This is what, you know, and not allowing them to make their own decisions. And I was noticing that a lot of parents, and, you know, this is never a slam to parents, because we and I just did the best we could with what we had.
Yes.
But times have changed. Things are so different. And I like to use the analogy where when parents say to me, oh, well, way back in the day, this is what we did. And I would say, if you were having surgery, do you want the surgeon that trained in 1942? Or do you want the surgeon that is up to date, 2024, has all the new technology, has all the new. And it's the same for all of us. Times have changed, things are different. And just because it might have worked for you then, it's a different world. It's a different world.
Yeah, beautiful. It is. And children nowadays are already born with the ability and the technology that we've had to learn. It's like they get plugged into that information. I know we talked about it in our you know, about the morphogenic field. So we've this field of energy, of information, and all that's gone before us. The children plug into that as they come in, so they don't need to do that back learning, because they've already caught up to speed with where they need to be, but they're also bringing in that knowledge of how to take things further into the future.
Yes,
That's evolution. That's how it happens.
exactly. And that's now all part of the daily experience. And so it's not a matter of, even when kids are on their screens too much, or, if parents are feeling that they're disconnected, they're on the screens, they're doing this. But in most conversations, when I sit down with parents and kids, what's too much? Oh, well, they must be on it 5-10 hours a day. And well, does the kid know what your expectation is? Does the kid know that you think that's too much? But it's also generalized. Instead of being very specific and handing out our expectation, doesn't mean no rules. It just means, listen, I think, my expectation is 2 hours a day on your screen. How do you feel about that? And they may say, okay, no problem, I can do 2 hours. Or they may say, oh, that's not fair, blah, blah, blah. Well, then you need to line up why this is your expectation, why you feel like this is important to you. And then you work together to collaborate on a good expectation, on something that works for both of you. Kids are not going to respond to power over, you do this is the rule. Kids will respond to, let's work out what works for both of us. Because not only are you teaching them something in the moment, but you're giving them a life skill forever. How to collaborate, how to work with people, how to figure, oh, I'm not always going to meet that expectation. How can I sort this out? Like, it's a life skill, as opposed to 2 hours, or I take your phone away and it goes in the drawer, and I don't know what lesson that, teaches anybody.
As well as how many parents, if we take the 2-hour rule that we're just speaking about, how many parents would be able to stick with that themselves?
Yeah, darn right.
Yeah. So, one of the things that, we both understand is that children don't learn from people telling them something. They learn more from observing what is happening. So if a parent is on their phone 24/7 and then turning around and saying to the child, but you can only be there for 2 hours, then the injustice. And then comes the anger, because that is so unfair. And Freddie down the road gets to have no limits to his screen time. So you're going to get some big emotions coming up. So how can a parent deal with those big emotions that are coming up and that injustice energy?
Yeah, I think acknowledge it. First of all, you know what? And if it's a big emotion, if it's a lot of response, this is where our inner work comes. This is where we don't have to react. And when you react in those moments, all you're creating is a ping pong game. Bang, 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 bang. No, you said, I hate you, I'm going to your room. It creates nothing but a terrible ping pong game. Whereas as parents, we can stop, we can take a breath. We can even say to the kid, there's probably a better way to say that to me. And I'm just going to step away because I need to take a breath. And if you're not responding, if you're not reacting, you're not going to get anything back. And even if you just leave dead silence in the air, your kid's going to go and maybe have some time to process what they said and how they said it. But in return, as a mom, I'm going to say mom, but any parent, as a mom, I'm going, I need a minute. You're teaching them so much in that moment. You're asking for grace. You're giving space. And then when your mom comes back and says, okay, let's work this out. Let's see what we can, what works for you. And this works for me. And let's, now they're like, not only are they getting a collaborative problem solving, but they're also seeing what that space did for mom. So that ripples out. We don't have to say to our kids, go meditate, go take a breath, go count to 5. We don't have to say that. They just have to see us do it
And
and
experience it.
experience it. And then that just ripples out right through the house. You don't have to do anything else. It just goes. And it's not an overnight fix, but it is a very long-term, sustainable, great skill building process for kids.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Mhm.
So we mentioned a little bit about the parent being triggered by the child. Can you talk a little bit more about that that having to do your own work? If you get triggered, it's because you have a trigger, right? Like
Mm.
if that behavior doesn't trigger you, then that means there's no trigger there and there's no inner work to do yourself, but
Mhm.
and then you can hold the space for somebody else. So let's talk a little bit about, what you've discovered, if you like, if you want to even give some examples about, these parent triggers that we have and where they come from.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk maybe when kids are talking about post-secondary, what they want to do after high school. And it becomes an argument because you're going to university, you're going to take engineering, and they are now, but that's not my interest. That's not what I want to do. I want to take a year off, or I want to go to college, or I want a business, or so at what point, when that anger of the parents, what point do they need to say, is this my dream? Do I want them to live vicariously through me? Do I think the only way a person can be successful and make money and be stable is in this and nothing else? Like where is all this coming from? Where you feel like you need to tell somebody what their dreams and goals are. And I find it's reflected 30 years later when people my age are all in these courses and classes to say, oh, that's not what I wanted to do for the last 50 years. That's not what I wanted. Something else is calling me. But if we're allowing our kids to follow their dream, find their interest, and get involved in that interest, doesn't matter what it is. If it's video games, if it's art, if it's sports, get involved, because when you're involved, then they know you respect what they're loving and they will share more. And it's trying to take control over your kid path of your kid is just such a good way to form a divide between the two of you. And if you're just fostering what they love and even noticing, oh, you light right up when you draw those pictures. You light right up. I love when you explain this art. What else can we do with this? Instead of, oh, that's a good backup plan. If there's one thing we've learned from COVID, we can do anything and be successful. We can have a YouTube channel, we can have video game creation. We can do literally anything and be successful if we love it. And we don't have to go to college or to university or be an engineer. We don't have to do those. Those are options. Those are phenomenal options. I did them, but it doesn't mean everybody has to do it. We just have to foster what they love. We have to notice what makes them shine. Because when you're doing something you love, doesn't the time just fly? Don't you feel like, oh man, when I do yoga or when I read or in this part of my job, I love this HR part of my job, and the time goes by so fast. Notice what you love and how that makes you feel. Is that not what you want to instill in your kids right from the start?
Yes. I wonder how many parents that are listening to this going, I wish I'd had that experience when I was younger. I'm just, you can't help just thinking about your own teenage years. And I think lucky, unlucky. I'm not quite sure which way it goes, but my parents had no interest in in anything I was doing.
Oh,
None at
wow.
all. I never got
Okay.
asked how school was, like nothing. So I basically lived my own life, if you like. And there were certain rules, like you have to be back before it's dark, which I totally ignored. Um, but I'm thinking, like, only at that point at school, when do you remember when you have to go to decide what it is that you want to do with the rest of your life in that 1 week? You get a week to think about it, and then you have to decide at the end
Yes.
of that 1 week at that. And like I just like that was the first time anybody had asked me, well, what do you want to do? Because there was that expectation, I think, from my parents that I would go in and be a secretary like mum. So
Yeah, yeah.
like no discussion, that's what you're going to do, Sharon.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so many different, you don't, and it's never too late to change. I mean, I was a hairdresser, and then I bought a pizza place. And then I, ran my pizza restaurant. And then is when I got an opportunity to teach without having to go back to school. It was just teaching adults. And it was just this really small opportunity. And I was like, oh, this feels really good. And then I went back to university when I was 30 and my kids were young, and I had to like fight tooth and nail and sacrifices, but going and feeling good, and it just drove me. There was no stress about it, because that's what I loved. That's what I wanted to do. And so yeah, it's never too late. So even if your kids are picking something now, it doesn't have to be permanent for them either. And if we are doing, my kids are watching me after 25 years teaching, going, okay, I'm done. I'm going to have a podcast and a coaching business. And my kids are like, oh, that's kind of cool that you could just do that. So your kids aren't, they listen to you, they hear you, but they watch you like a hawk. They
Mhm.
just watch you like a hawk. And when we say all we want is our kids to be happy, but we want them to have joy, like pure joy, as often as possible, as much as possible, with any area of life as possible. And that means sometimes taking that lens off and putting a different lens on.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So many parents with were talk about the neurotypical children.
Mhm.
Many parents, I believe, in my experience through working with parents, don't fully understand how, yes, these children may be super sensitive and super reactive and do things that aren't quite the norm, but they also have superpowers,
Mm.
as you say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would, would you like to share a little bit about how you help those parents turn their beliefs around, their son, their daughter that isn't
Yeah.
like the children down the road, and why do they, kick off about this and think, yeah. How do you work with parents? How do you help them see the superpower in their child?
Well, first of all, the big emotions. I mean, again, it comes from, especially if we have a non-speaking kid on the spectrum. Non-speaking meaning anything from a tag in the back of their shirt to the air is too cold or the lights are too bright could completely cause, you know, a very
Meltdown.
emotional reaction. Yeah. Um, and it's more, we have to teach these kids, we have to first of all go, it's a communication piece. They're just trying to tell me something. And it's in any kid that's like you feel has a behavior, it's just a communication piece. So we have to look at all different angles about how do we teach these kids to even communicate. There are communication boards. We had a young boy in our school who really had emotional out meltdowns 5, 6, 7 times a day. And I mean, very emotional. We were all in protective equipment. And it was because he was either cold or tired or hungry or any of that. And parents were just not accepting that this was who their son was. And so when it came to resources and looking for communication pieces and looking at a medication piece, looking at all those pieces together, turned him around. We taught him how to communicate with pictures, and he would just take his picture and take a picture of the toilet, put the toilet on, off we go. Put French fries on this picture. Oh, he's hungry. And off. And it decreased by 98% these meltdowns because it was just trying to tell us something. But what's his superpower? His superpower is that he doesn't have to have all this blah, blah, blah conversation. He can just go, boom, that's what I want. And that's what I get. There's nothing wrong with that. And usually, and there's always a strength built in. Like some kids on the spectrum are super high functioning math, super high functioning science. Some who are speaking have a very great language skill. So we just have to dig it out and shine a big light on it. And then the needs kind of, they get a little bit less significant when the strengths are focused, right? So I think it's looking at all of the possibilities, and there's a lot of parents out there who don't know what's available. And you are your kid's best advocate. So make the calls, call the advocates, call whoever you need to call. Start off as a process, talk to the teachers, talk to the principals, go up the ladder. But don't stop. If somebody says, we can't help, don't stop. I don't care where you are, don't stop. There are systems in place that get brushed under the table, or, parents get intimidated. There's multiple parents that have said to me, oh, I don't want to say anything because it's going to make it worse for my kid. It's like, no, just keep talking. That's not going to happen. Just keep talking. And so, just look under every rock, because there's things that you don't even know that you don't know. So just keep asking. There's boards of education, there's private advocates, there's lots of resources. But that's something I found really interesting, is when parents came into my high school from other schools, had no idea what was actually available, and funding from the government. Like there's a lot of things out there that are available to help you with respite care and medication. And so, yeah, I could go on forever.
I think the other thing, through my experience, is that these children, actually, it's not just these children, we are all empathic. So, and how you're feeling as a parent, your child is kind of living in that emotion that's coming from your body. So quite often what is a trigger for them is actually what is within you as your parent. But if they cannot communicate it, maybe the only way they can communicate it is to act out how you're feeling.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's, again, when you're feeling stress at home, or you don't like what your kid's doing, is it time to just check in with yourself, take a step back, say, okay, what is this I'm feeling and why? And that's when you go, oh, I really had a shitty day at work, and the bills are piling up, and dinner, and all he actually did was throw a toy on the floor. But if you can take a step back and just go, okay, I'm just going to recognize I'm really stressed out right now, and I'm just, even 3 deep breaths in another room for a minute can work a miracle for you. But recognizing it in yourself, and not without judgment. We all feel this way. There's no judgment at all. But, and again, if the kids are watching you, they're also going to see you take a step back and take a breath.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And again, you're teaching them how to deal with high emotions. It's all about teaching them emotional resiliency by being emotionally resilient yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Because they can't be something that you're not as a teenager.
Yeah, 100%. you're just mirroring everything. So it's, if you keep that in mind, it's, you know, it's that one breath. Like if you can just say, pause, just pause. You don't have to go do, you know, read a book and meditate or go for a swim. Just pause, just take a pause. And that will be the difference between reaction and responding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's that when you're in that high emotion, when you're triggered in that way, it's very difficult to work out a solution because the emotion is all you're feeling. So it's emotion reaction, and there's no working out being able to work out what the solution is here. So if you can learn to lower your emotion or process the emotion in the moment. I with parents, I do teach them EFT so they can go away, bring their emotions down, recognize that they're getting to that high emotional state themselves, and then they're able to go back and more calmly deal with the child.
Yeah, you're totally in fight or flight. Fight or flight. That's all you're in. And you're right. And the tapping, even the tapping to go away and tap or tap in front of them.
Yeah, or tap with
Right.
them.
And let them,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's such a great strategy. And again,
Yes.
all these pieces are just, it's just step by step becoming aware. And then it will start becoming a habit, but it's just noticing.
Yes.
And even with your kid, I notice you're having some really big feelings. Like, how did, and you know, open-ended questions. You know, I noticed you're having some really big feelings today, and you know, did anything happen at school? How was math? Get very specific, because then it might go, oh yeah, well, it was math, it was 9 o'clock, it was, I didn't have breakfast, it was, you know. And usually we can sort it out enough to say, okay, it's an isolated problem here. Now, if that happens again, what can we do? And
So communication is key.
1000%.
But I can imagine quite often when you get to meet these parents, they've had a whole, I don't know, 13 years of no communication. And now you're asking them to switch to being able to be able to communicate in a different way.
Yeah.
And
What's
that's,
the alternative?
I know.
Right? What's the alternative? It's never a quick fix. It's always, you're always playing the long game. And
Yeah.
you think about it, that I have to have the patience to play the long game, because this is a skill I'm building for them for life. It's not, you're grounded, you're timeout, you're getting this, you're getting that for an immediate situation that really doesn't teach them anything, except they're scared of standing in the corner, or they're scared of going to the room by themselves, and it doesn't teach them anything. And I just find, yep, it's gonna 100% take time. It's a whole new way of looking at things. 100%. I don't argue that at all. But if you start with the small things, even if you put post-it notes on your bathroom mirror, go notice, just notice, just notice, just notice, because it will change the dynamics. And once you see small changes, then it just becomes, oh, there's some momentum here. Well, this is feeling really good, you know. And it really does, you know, it really does make such a huge difference. And you want that connection with your kids. Like you don't want to wait till they're grown and out of the house and then they start liking you again. You know, and I don't mean be their friend. You still need to be their leader. But a good leader pushes people up.
Yeah.
They don't push people down and control.
Yeah.
So it's not in any way am I saying you're not a leader, you're not, you know, not in control of the situation. That's not what I'm saying. It's lead, but lead with a different perspective.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, when you think about it, and again, you know, when you work with somebody to help them go back into their childhood, we all have the same needs. We all need to be seen. We all need to be heard. We all need to be felt and understood. So parents need to be heard, seen, felt, understood. The child also needs that. But if you can't find a way to honor that in each other, then that's when the difficulties, I guess, the separation, the power over, that's when all of that starts to begin. And the trouble is, most of us have been brought up, me not so much, but a lot of people have been brought up in, because that was thought to be the right way to be a parent, is to, set these rules. Don't take care of yourself. Self-care is another big, a whole new, like if you're not showing your child how to take care of yourself, do self-care, the child is not going to learn those skills.
Yeah. And we talked about empathy, and if your kid is having a hard time, recognize that they're having a hard. That must have been so hard. Period. Full stop. Oh, yeah. And then he said this, and then he said that, and then he kicked my chair over. That must have been so hard, because a reaction most of the time is, well, what did you do? Why didn't you just ignore him? Why didn't you? No, that must have been so hard. Feel what they're feeling and let them talk about it. Like, that's not, the end of the conversation. Bring it out of them. That must have been so hard. And they will be like, well, yeah, yeah, actually it was. And there you go. Right.
You've just seen me. You've just understood how I'm feeling.
100%. And you can act that, if not everybody has a co-parent in the house, but if you do, there's a really good way to, role play that at home. Oh, you had a bad day at work? Is this what that must have been? Horrible. You must have felt so sad. Like, recognize those feelings and play it out, and they will see, yes, I'm allowed to have these feelings. I'm allowed to use my voice, but in a way that's respectful to me and respectful to the people I'm talking about. I'm sure it's just love, right? It's just, in the end, it's just loving people as much as you can possibly love on them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another very powerful statement I find is, I'm really sorry you're feeling that way, or I'm really sorry you had that experience.
100%. That's perfect. Yeah.
That word sorry.
Yeah. And it's we can not apologize saying, at any time. Yes. Right? As parents, like parents have a hard
I'm
time.
Really sorry that that anger just came up out of me. I'm really sorry. That was my anger. You own your emotion. You teaching them to own their emotion by you owning your own emotion.
Yes, 100%. And it just really validates, I don't know, years ago, and even I grew up in a time where you didn't talk back. You didn't even have a reason. If it was no, it was no. There was no negotiation, none. And is that what we want? No, we want our kids to have a voice, because we're putting them in situations where if they're not allowed to talk back, or they're not allowed to negotiate, they're not allowed to, how are we teaching them to really like step into their own power in any situation?
Yeah. And we get triggered into this, they're not listening to me, I don't know what to do with them, I can't connect with them anymore. So looking at this own emotion of this, I feel disconnected from my child, I'm alone, there's no connection between us right now. Like, if you're feeling like that, then so is your child.
Yeah. And you can connect over anything. Put them in the car because they need a ride to the mall, and start connecting. You don't have to make eye contact, and it doesn't even have to be anything that you're interested in. But if you know that there's a specific music they like to listen to, might give you a migraine, but suck it up, put it on and rock it out. And they might think you're so lame and so ridiculous, but inside they know, oh, they know what I like. And they don't like it, but they're listening to it anyway. Like it's these little things to make connections, very specific connections, and you'll never go wrong.
Mm. Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. Well, Cheryl, we could talk about these subjects for
We sure could.
ever,
Yes.
ever, and I'm
Yeah.
sure we will.
Yeah.
We will going to do this in the future, and I'm sure
Yes. Yeah.
there'll be stuff that we can do more. So, if people want to learn more about what you do, where would they find you?
On any podcast platform, it's Teen Minds Redefined. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Cheryl A. Pankhurst. And my website is almost ready to go. When it's ready, it'll be launched into the ether as well. And the one-on-one coaching will be launched in a program probably end of the summer. So
Beautiful, and I'll put all the links below there for people. Okay, one last question.
Go.
What out of all your podcasts that you've done, what was the biggest takeaway that you've had from that you hadn't already understood, but somebody just gave you something and you went, oh, I've never seen it from that point before. That was amazing. Or maybe it was even something that's come out from you and you've gone, wow, I didn't know I knew that.
Yeah, I think it was, I had a stand-up comedian on. And, it sounds weird because I'm not looking for just experts in parenting. I'm looking for someone who took a completely different path. And, we're in this conversation and I was like, well, how did you do in high school? And he said, well, it's nice of you to even assume I went to high school. No. Oh, okay. And then I said, how did your parents feel about this big career? He's got this big career, like he's very successful. Well, it's nice of you to think that my parents gave a shit about my career. And I was like, wow. And he was in jail. He was in gangs. And I was like, it just confirmed with me that he had. It just confirmed with me that he had it in him. And his big piece of advice. I don't know if I got cut off.
I disappeared.
Oh, was it still going?
It's still recording, yes.
Oh, okay.
So you can carry on with what you were saying.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just, you cannot judge anybody by anybody. And if you have something in your heart, you just bet on yourself. And that's what he said. I just bet on myself. I just bet on myself all the time. Just kept betting on myself. So that can go anyway as a parent. Yeah, things are off the rails. We're not connecting. He won't talk to me, throw stuff around the room. Today's a new day. Meet them where they're at. You can always find a connection. You can always just take little steps and just bet on yourself, because it's all about how much you love your child. You love your child. Nobody's arguing that ever. So if you're coming from love and, a lot of self-compassion, just bet on yourself as a parent so that your kid starts betting on themselves. I think that was just such a profound message he's sent out of the blue. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. All right, my darling. Thank you so much for spending this time with us, especially on this auspicious day.
Yes. Oh, yes. I'll never forget it.
Exactly.
My pleasure. You do such beautiful work, Sharon. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this podcast, and all the links are below to connect with Cheryl. So go and check out her awesome podcasts and check out her awesomeness.
Thank you. So grateful.